A widow and her daughter ate a rotten apple. The farmer took off his coat and said, "Come in." The road stretched long and quiet under a pale sky, the kind of afternoon that felt neither warm nor cold, but carried a tired stillness. Dust moved gently with the wind, rising and falling around worn footsteps that had already traveled too far. Elena walked slowly along the edge of the road, holding a small cloth bag in one hand while her other hand stayed close to her daughter. She kept her shoulders straight even though exhaustion pulled them down. She had learned that posture could hide weakness, at least from strangers passing by. Her daughter, Sophia, walked beside her with shorter steps, trying to match her mother's pace. The girl's shoes were old and slightly too big, tied tightly to keep them from slipping. She looked around with curiosity even while tired, noticing birds flying overhead and the distant fields stretching in every direction. Children often found wonder even in difficult moments, and Sophia was no different. Every few minutes she asked a question: where they were going, how much farther they had to walk, whether they would find a place to rest soon. Elena answered gently each time, her voice calm even when uncertainty filled her thoughts. They had left the town early that morning. Elena had made the decision during a sleepless night when she realized she could no longer stay where they were. After her husband passed away months earlier, life had slowly become harder. At first, neighbors had offered kind words and small help, but time moved forward and people returned to their own lives. Bills came without waiting. Work was difficult to find, and every day felt heavier than the last. When the landlord explained that he needed the room back, Elena understood that she could not argue. She packed only what they could carry and chose a direction that led toward farmland, hoping that somewhere among open fields there might be opportunity. She did not tell Sophia how uncertain she felt. Instead, she described the journey as an adventure, saying they would meet new people and see new places. Sophia believed her, because children often trusted the strength they saw in their parents. Elena protected that trust carefully. The road curved gently, passing by rows of trees that once formed an orchard. Many branches were bare, and some fruit lay scattered on the ground, forgotten and bruised. A wooden fence leaned slightly, showing signs of age and neglect. Elena paused for a moment, studying the area. It seemed quiet enough to rest, and she could feel the weight of the day pressing on her legs. "Let's sit for a minute," she said softly. They moved toward the shade of a tree. Sophia dropped her small bundle onto the grass and stretched her arms, letting out a tiny sigh that made Elena smile despite everything. The simple sound reminded her that her daughter still found small relief in ordinary moments. While they rested, Elena looked across the fields. In the distance, she noticed a figure moving slowly between rows of crops. A farmer, perhaps. The person seemed focused on work, unaware of their presence. Elena felt both relief and hesitation. She needed help, yet she feared asking for it. Pride and caution walked together in her heart. Sophia's eyes wandered toward the ground. "Mama," she said quietly, pointing at something near the roots of the tree. A fallen apple lay there, its skin wrinkled and slightly brown on one side. It was not fresh, but hunger made it appear more inviting than it should have been. Elena hesitated. She knew it was not good food, but they had eaten very little since morning. She picked it up and brushed off dirt gently, turning it in her hand as if searching for a safer side. For a moment she considered throwing it away, yet she saw the hopeful look in Sophia's eyes. "We'll share just a little," she said carefully. They sat close together, breaking off small pieces. The taste was sour and soft, but they tried to laugh about it. Sophia made a funny face, and Elena chuckled quietly. The laughter felt fragile but real, a reminder that joy could still exist even in hardship. As they ate, Elena noticed movement again in the distance. The farmer had paused and seemed to be looking toward them. She lowered her gaze, unsure whether to wave or pretend she had not noticed. She did not want to appear desperate, even though she felt it deeply. Time passed slowly. The wind moved through the fields, carrying the smell of soil and grass. Sophia leaned against her mother's shoulder, resting quietly. Elena watched the horizon and thought about her husband. He had been strong and gentle, the kind of man who believed problems could be solved with patience. Losing him had changed everything. Some days she still expected to hear his voice beside her, offering reassurance. Now she had to become both comfort and strength for their daughter. The silence around them felt heavy, but peaceful at the same time. Elena realized how long it had been since she allowed herself to simply sit, without rushing or worrying about the next step. Even uncertainty had a quiet side. Sophia suddenly pointed again, this time at a bird hopping nearby. She began describing what she imagined the bird's life was like, creating a small story full of adventure. Elena listened, smiling softly. Her daughter's imagination reminded her that hope was not gone. It simply waited for space to grow. Across the field, the farmer remained still for a moment longer before returning to work. Elena noticed, but did not think much of it. People often saw strangers on the road and chose not to get involved. She understood that feeling. Life had taught her that everyone carried their own struggles. After resting, Elena stood slowly and adjusted the strap of her bag. "We should keep moving," she said gently. Sophia nodded, pushing herself up with determination that made Elena proud. They walked again, leaving the tree behind. The orchard faded into the distance as the road stretched forward. Each step felt like a quiet promise, not of certainty, but of continued effort. The afternoon light softened, turning the fields golden. Elena felt both tired and strangely calm. She did not know where the road would lead, but she knew she would keep walking for as long as necessary. For her daughter, for herself, and for the memory of the life she once had. Behind them, the farmer watched again, this time longer. He noticed the slow pace, the worn clothes, and the way the child stayed close to her mother. Something about the scene stayed in his mind even after they disappeared around the bend. Elena and Sophia continued forward, unaware that a simple moment, sharing a rotten apple under a tree, had already set their path toward a meeting that would quietly change their lives. The road felt longer as the afternoon moved slowly toward evening. Elena noticed that Sophia's steps were not as steady as before. The girl walked quietly now, no longer pointing at birds or asking curious questions. At first Elena thought it was only tiredness, but then she saw how Sophia's shoulders drooped and how her breathing sounded heavier than usual. "Are you all right?" Elena asked gently, slowing her pace. Sophia nodded, trying to smile, but her face looked pale. "I feel a little strange," she admitted. Her voice was softer than before, and she held her stomach as if uncomfortable. Elena's heart tightened with worry. She immediately thought about the apple they had eaten under the tree. She should have been more careful, she told herself. A wave of guilt rose inside her, but she pushed it aside because panic would not help her daughter. "Let's sit down again," she said calmly, guiding Sophia toward a patch of grass near the side of the road. They sat together, and Elena placed her hand on Sophia's forehead. It felt warm, though not dangerously hot. The girl leaned against her, closing her eyes for a moment. The wind moved through the fields again, but this time the air felt colder. Elena looked around, searching for help, but the road remained mostly empty. The distant farmhouse stood beyond a wide stretch of land. She remembered seeing someone working there earlier, the farmer who had watched them from afar. She wondered if she should walk toward the house, but she hesitated. Asking for help had always been difficult for her. Since losing her husband, she had faced many situations where people treated her with pity rather than respect, and she feared that feeling again. Sophia shifted slightly, letting out a small sigh. Elena brushed her daughter's hair gently and spoke in a soothing voice. "Rest for a moment. Everything will be fine." Minutes passed slowly. Elena kept glancing toward the farmhouse, uncertain what to do. Then she noticed movement in the distance. The farmer was walking toward them, crossing the field with steady steps. He did not rush, but he came with quiet purpose. Elena straightened her back, unsure how to react. She was grateful for the possibility of help, yet cautious at the same time. The man approached slowly, stopping at a respectful distance. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. His voice was gentle and low, without pressure. "I noticed you resting here. Is everything all right?" "My daughter isn't feeling well," she said honestly. "We'll rest for a while and then we'll continue." The farmer nodded, observing without judgment. He noticed Sophia leaning heavily against her mother and the tired look in Elena's eyes. He also noticed the apple core lying nearby on the ground. "I have water," he offered, lifting a small container. "It might help." Elena accepted with quiet gratitude. She helped Sophia take small sips, watching carefully to make sure she felt better. The girl opened her eyes slightly and looked at the man with curiosity. "Thank you," Elena said softly. "My name is Daniel," he replied simply. Elena introduced herself and Sophia. The conversation remained brief and respectful. Daniel did not ask too many questions, sensing that they might not want to share everything at once. Instead, he observed their condition with quiet concern. Sophia suddenly shivered despite the mild weather. Without hesitation, Daniel removed his coat and gently held it out. "She might be cold," he said. Elena hesitated again, unsure whether to accept such kindness, but Daniel's expression remained calm and sincere. She nodded, helping Sophia put on the coat. The warmth seemed to comfort the girl almost immediately. Daniel looked toward his farmhouse, then back at them. "You're welcome to come inside," he said after a moment. "It's not far. She can rest properly there." The words hung in the air. Elena felt a mixture of relief and fear. Accepting help meant trusting a stranger, something she had learned to be careful about. Yet she saw no pressure or expectation in Daniel's face. He spoke as if offering something simple, not something that required repayment. "We don't want to cause trouble," she said quietly. "It's no trouble," he answered. "Sometimes people just need a place to sit." His calm tone reassured her more than any explanation could. Elena looked at Sophia, who now leaned against her with closed eyes. The decision became clear. She nodded slowly. "All right," she said. Daniel walked beside them as they moved toward the farmhouse. The path crossed through open fields where rows of crops stretched toward the horizon. The farmhouse appeared modest but well cared for, surrounded by tools and small gardens. Chickens moved around freely, and a dog resting near the porch lifted its head but did not bark. Inside, the air felt warm and safe. The house smelled of fresh bread and clean wood. Elena noticed simple furniture arranged neatly, showing that someone lived there with care even if the space felt quiet. Daniel guided Sophia to a chair near the table. He poured more water and prepared a light meal, working with steady hands that showed experience. Elena watched, still unsure how to express her gratitude without feeling like a burden. "You can rest," he said gently. "There's no rush." Elena sat slowly, feeling tension leave her shoulders for the first time that day. She realized how tired she truly was. Sophia ate a few small bites and began to look more comfortable. Daniel asked if he could call someone from the nearby village who knew basic health care, just to make sure everything was all right. Elena agreed, relieved by his thoughtful approach. While waiting, silence filled the room, but it was not uncomfortable. Sophia looked around with curiosity, noticing small details, a clock ticking quietly, pictures on the wall, a window showing fields outside. The calm environment seemed to soothe her. Elena observed Daniel carefully. He moved quietly, speaking only when necessary, never asking questions that felt too personal. She sensed that he understood hardship in a way that did not need explanation. Eventually, Sophia began to regain some energy. She smiled slightly and whispered something about the dog outside, which made Elena laugh softly. The small sound felt like hope returning. Daniel watched them from across the table, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps he remembered something from his own past, though he did not speak about it yet. As evening light entered through the windows, Elena realized how quickly circumstances could change. Just hours earlier they had been alone on the road, unsure of where to go. Now they sat in a warm kitchen, sharing quiet conversation with a stranger who had offered kindness without hesitation. The moment felt simple, almost ordinary, yet deeply meaningful. And when Daniel repeated his earlier words, "You can stay until she feels better," Elena understood that this was more than a temporary stop. It was the beginning of something she had not expected, a place where rest and trust could grow slowly, step by step without pressure or fear. bringing soft light through the farmhouse windows. Ellen awoke before anyone else, unsure at first where she was. For a moment she felt the old habit of worry return, but then she remembered the events of the previous evening. The long road, Sophia becoming weak, and the farmer named Daniel who had opened his home without hesitation. The memory filled her with quiet relief. She sat up carefully, listening. The house was calm, with only the faint ticking of a clock and distant sounds of animals outside. Sophia slept peacefully on a small bed near the corner of the room, wrapped in a blanket that looked clean and warm. Elena watched her daughter's face closely, searching for signs of illness. Sophia's breathing seemed steady, and her color looked healthier than the day before. Elena let out a slow breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Carefully she stood and moved towards the kitchen. Daniel was already there, preparing breakfast. He turned slightly when he noticed her but did not look surprised. "Good morning," he said gently. "Good morning," Elena replied, feeling a little unsure. She wanted to thank him again but worried about repeating herself too much. Gratitude filled her, yet she didn't want to seem overly emotional. "She slept well," Daniel said, as if understanding her thoughts. "That's a good sign." Elena nodded. "Thank you for everything." He gave a small nod, accepting the words without making them heavy. "You both needed rest. That's all." The simplicity of his response eased her discomfort. She noticed how he moved quietly, without unnecessary noise, as if used to long periods of silence. The kitchen felt peaceful, filled with the smell of warm bread and tea. Soon Sophia woke and joined them, walking slowly but smiling. She seemed stronger, and Elena felt relief spread through her chest. They ate together, and Sophia began to talk about the animals outside, asking Daniel many questions. He answered patiently, explaining how the farm worked, how crops grew through seasons, and how animals needed routine and care. Elena watched the interaction with interest. Sophia's natural curiosity brought warmth into the room, and Daniel's reserved expression softened each time the girl laughed. "After breakfast, Elena insisted on helping clean up." She did not want to sit idly while someone else worked. Daniel tried to refuse politely, but she smiled and continued anyway. The simple act of washing dishes made her feel useful again, something she had missed for a long time. As the day moved forward, Elena stepped outside to see the farm more clearly. The land stretched wide, filled with rows of growing plants and tools carefully arranged near a small shed. The air smelled fresh, and birds moved between trees, creating a peaceful rhythm. Daniel showed Sophia around, pointing out different areas: the barn, the small garden, and the path leading toward the orchard where Elena had first rested. Sophia listened with excitement, her earlier weakness forgotten. Elena followed behind them, feeling both grateful and cautious. She reminded herself that this stay was temporary. She did not want to assume she could remain here forever. Yet she also felt something she had not felt in months: safety. Later, while Sophia played with the dog near the yard, Elena and Daniel sat at a small table outside. The conversation began slowly with simple topics about weather and work, but gradually deeper stories emerged. Elena spoke about her past carefully. She shared how her husband had been kind and hard-working, how they built a simple life together, and how everything changed after he passed away. She did not speak with bitterness, only quiet honesty. Daniel listened without interrupting, showing respect by giving her space to finish each thought. When she asked about his life, he paused before answering. He explained that he had lived alone for several years. He mentioned losing family members long ago, which led him to focus entirely on work. The farm became both his responsibility and his refuge. Their conversation did not feel heavy. Instead, it created understanding between two people who had both experienced loss in different ways. During the afternoon, Daniel returned to his tasks, and Elena offered to help. At first he hesitated, but when he saw her determination, he agreed. She assisted with simple chores, organizing tools, carrying small baskets, and feeding animals. Working with her hands brought a sense of normalcy back into her life. Sophia watched happily, occasionally joining them and asking to help too. Her laughter filled the open air, making the farm feel less lonely. As hours passed, Elena noticed how Daniel worked steadily without rushing. He treated every task with patience, as if understanding that growth and repair took time. She realized that his kindness toward them reflected the same careful approach he used with the land. Later in the day, a woman from the nearby village arrived, the person Daniel had contacted to check on Sophia. She spoke kindly and confirmed that the girl seemed to be recovering well. The reassurance lifted the final weight from Elena's heart. Evening came gently, bringing cooler air and soft colors across the sky. They gathered again inside for dinner. Conversation flowed more easily now, filled with small jokes and shared observations. Sophia told stories about imaginary adventures, and both adults listened with smiles.
Elena noticed something changing inside herself.
The tension she had carried for months slowly loosened. She felt less like a person running away from problems and more like someone stepping toward a new beginning. After dinner, Sophia grew sleepy and went to bed early. Elena stayed at the table for a while, watching the fading light outside. Daniel sat across from her, quietly drinking tea. "I don't know how to repay your kindness," she said eventually. "You don't need to repay anything," he replied calmly. "Sometimes helping someone is enough." His words felt sincere, not rehearsed. Elena nodded slowly, understanding that he meant them. The house felt different now, warmer, filled with gentle energy rather than silence. The simple routine of the day had created connection without pressure. As night settled over the farm, Elena prepared to rest, feeling a quiet hope growing inside her. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long while, she believed that life might still hold unexpected kindness and new paths waiting to be discovered. The next few days passed with a gentle rhythm that felt almost unfamiliar to Elena. She woke each morning to soft light entering through the farmhouse windows and the quiet sounds of the farm beginning its day. The air carried the smell of fresh soil and warm bread, and for the first time in many months she felt her thoughts slow down instead of racing with worry. Sophia recovered fully, her energy returning little by little. She followed Daniel around the yard with endless curiosity, asking questions about everything she saw. She wanted to know how seeds grew into plants, why chickens moved in certain patterns, and how the dogs seemed to understand simple commands without words. Daniel answered patiently, sometimes smiling in ways that showed he was not used to so much conversation but secretly enjoyed it. Elena helped wherever she could. She swept floors, organized tools, and assisted with small tasks in the garden. At first she felt uncertain about how much she should do, afraid of overstepping or appearing as though she assumed she belonged there. But Daniel encouraged her quietly, telling her that work shared between people felt lighter. Despite the peaceful routine, Elena's mind did not fully rest. She knew that staying here forever without a clear plan was not realistic. She worried about becoming dependent or creating pressure on Daniel, who had already offered more kindness than she expected from anyone. At night, after Sophia slept, Elena sometimes sat near the window and thought about what her next step should be. One afternoon, while she was hanging laundry outside, a neighbor passed by the farm. The man greeted Daniel politely, but looked at Elena and Sophia with visible curiosity.
Elena felt the weight of that look immediately.
She had experienced it before, the silent questions people asked without speaking aloud. Later that day, she overheard parts of a conversation between Daniel and another local farmer near the fence. The words were not unkind, but they carried concern. The neighbor asked who the newcomers were and whether it was wise to let strangers stay. Daniel responded calmly, saying only that they needed a place to rest. His tone remained steady, but Elena felt a wave of unease. She did not want to be the cause of tension or gossip. That evening she became quieter during dinner, lost in thought. Sophia noticed and asked if everything was all right. Elena smiled gently, reassuring her daughter, but inside she felt conflicted. After Sophia went to sleep, Elena spoke to Daniel openly. She told him she appreciated everything he had done but did not want to create problems with his neighbors or his life. Daniel listened carefully, leaning against the table with thoughtful eyes.
People talk,
he said simply. They always do, but that doesn't change what is right. His calm response surprised her. She expected hesitation or discomfort, yet he seemed certain. Still, Elena felt responsible for her own future. She explained that she wanted to find work soon and contribute more than just gratitude. Daniel nodded.
There's a small town not far from here, he said. They often need help in shops or kitchens.
If you want, I can introduce you. The suggestion filled Elena with hope. She thanked him sincerely, feeling a sense of direction forming again. The following day brought unexpected challenges. Dark clouds gathered quickly, and strong winds swept across the fields. Daniel noticed the signs of an approaching storm and began preparing the farm, securing tools, checking fences, and protecting plants that might be damaged. Without hesitation, Elena joined him. She tied ropes, moved equipment, and followed instructions carefully. The work was tiring but gave her purpose. Sophia watched from the porch, cheering them on in her own playful way. As the storm arrived, rain fell heavily and the sky turned gray. The sound of wind filled the air, creating a powerful energy that made everything feel alive. Elena felt both nervous and determined. Working beside Daniel during the storm strengthened a quiet trust between them. They moved in rhythm, understanding each other without needing many words. After the storm passed, the farm showed signs of damage. Some branches had fallen, and parts of the garden needed repair. Instead of feeling discouraged, Elena immediately began helping clean up. She picked up debris and checked on animals, showing a level of dedication that surprised even herself. Daniel noticed this and gave a small nod of appreciation. He realized that her presence was not a burden, but a partnership. The farm felt less lonely, and the shared effort created a sense of belonging for both of them. During the following days, Elena grew more confident. She practiced cooking with ingredients from the garden, learned small farming skills, and spent time teaching Sophia simple chores. The girl adapted quickly, making friends with the animals and turning every task into a game. The neighbors' attitude slowly changed as they saw Elena working hard and respecting the space she was given.
A woman from the nearby village stopped by with fresh bread, curious to meet her.
The conversation remained polite and warm, and Elena felt some of her earlier fear fade. One evening, as the sun set behind the fields, Elena sat outside alone. She watched the sky change colors and thought about how quickly life could shift. Only days earlier she had felt lost on the road, uncertain where to go. Now she sat in a place that felt safe, yet she understood that this safety came with responsibility. Daniel joined her quietly, carrying 2 cups of tea. They sat together without speaking for a while, listening to the sounds of nature around them.
I will go to the town soon,
Elena said finally. I want to find work and stand on my own again. Daniel nodded with understanding. You're strong enough to do that. His words felt encouraging rather than distant. Elena realized that his support did not mean keeping her dependent. It meant helping her move forward. As darkness settled, she felt a mixture of gratitude and determination. The journey ahead remained uncertain, but she no longer felt alone. The storm had tested them. The neighbors' questions had challenged them. And through it all, something steady had grown. Trust, respect, and the beginning of a new chapter neither of them had expected. That night, as she watched Sophia sleeping peacefully, Elena understood that sometimes life changed through quiet moments rather than dramatic events. A simple invitation, a shared effort during a storm, and the courage to accept kindness had started to rebuild pieces of her life that she thought were lost forever. The morning arrived with a calm brightness that made the fields look new again. Elena stood near the farmhouse door, watching the sunlight stretch across the land. The storm from days earlier had left small marks, but the farm was slowly returning to its usual rhythm. Plants stood tall again, animals moved peacefully, and the air carried a quiet sense of renewal. Inside, Sophia finished tying her shoes, ready for another day filled with curiosity. She had grown more confident since arriving at the farm. Her laughter came easily now, and she moved with a sense of safety that warmed Elena's heart. Seeing her daughter happy reminded Elena why she had continued forward even during the hardest moments. Today felt different. Daniel had arranged for Elena to visit the nearby town and meet a woman who managed a small bakery. The thought of work both excited and frightened her. She had not stepped into a new workplace since before her husband passed away. Still, she knew this was an important step toward building independence again. They traveled together in Daniel's old truck, driving along narrow roads that curved through fields and small houses. The town appeared slowly, filled with simple buildings and people moving through their daily routines. Elena felt nervous as they parked near the bakery. She adjusted her clothes and took a deep breath. "You'll do well," Daniel said calmly. His voice carried quiet confidence that made her feel stronger. Inside the bakery, warm smells filled the air. The owner greeted them kindly, and after a short conversation, she asked Elena about her experience and situation. Elena spoke honestly, but without focusing only on hardship. She explained that she wanted to work, learn, and provide stability for her daughter. The owner listened carefully, then smiled and offered her a trial position helping with preparation and cleaning. Elena felt relief wash over her. It was not a grand opportunity, but it was a beginning, and beginnings mattered. The next weeks passed quickly as she balanced work at the bakery and life at the farm. Each morning she traveled to town while Sophia stayed at a small local school Daniel had helped them find. The school welcomed Sophia warmly, and she soon began talking about new friends and lessons she enjoyed. Elena noticed changes in herself as well. She moved with more confidence, spoke more openly with others, and felt pride in earning her own income again. The bakery owner praised her dedication, and customers began recognizing her gentle smile. Evenings at the farmhouse became moments of shared stories. Sophia talked about school adventures. Daniel shared small updates about the farm, and Elena described funny moments from the bakery. The quiet house that once held only silence now felt alive with conversation and laughter. The neighbors' attitudes continued to soften. Some stopped by to say hello, bringing small gifts like fresh vegetables or homemade jam. Elena realized that people often needed time to understand new situations. Through patience and kindness, acceptance slowly grew. One afternoon while working in the garden, Elena reflected on how much had changed. She remembered the road, the hunger, and the fear she felt when she allowed Sophia to eat the rotten apple. That moment once filled her with guilt, but now she saw it differently. It was part of a journey that led them toward unexpected kindness. Daniel joined her outside, carrying tools. They worked side by side in comfortable silence. Over time, their friendship had deepened naturally. They understood each other without needing long explanations. Sometimes they spoke about the future, but often they simply focused on the present. As seasons began to shift, the orchard near the road showed signs of new growth. Small blossoms appeared on branches that once looked empty. One evening, they walked together toward that orchard, the same place where Elena and Sophia had rested on their first day. Sophia ran ahead, laughing as she spotted new apples beginning to form. Elena followed slowly, feeling a mix of emotion. Standing there again reminded her of how far they had come. Daniel looked around quietly.
"Life changes in small ways," he said. "Sometimes we don't notice until later."
She understood that the biggest changes often came from simple choices, like accepting help when it was offered. As months passed, Elena saved enough money to contribute to household expenses. She insisted on sharing responsibility, and Daniel accepted with appreciation. Their arrangement felt balanced, built on respect rather than obligation. Sophia grew stronger and happier, becoming part of the community. She learned new skills, made friends, and began dreaming about her future again. Watching her daughter thrive filled Elena with gratitude she struggled to put into words. One evening, after dinner, they sat outside together as the sun lowered behind the fields. The sky turned soft shades of orange and pink, creating a peaceful atmosphere. Birds returned to their nests and the farm settled into evening quiet. Elena thought about how different her life looked now. She no longer felt lost or alone. Instead, she felt connected to the land, to her work, and to the people who had welcomed her when she needed it most. She turned to Daniel. "That day on the road changed everything," she said softly. He gave a small smile. "Sometimes all someone needs is a door opened." She remembered the moment clearly. him removing his coat, offering warmth, and saying simple words that carried deep meaning. "Come in." Those words had not just invited them into a house. They had opened a path toward healing. The story did not end with dramatic events or sudden transformations. Instead, it continued quietly, built on everyday actions, working, learning, sharing meals, and supporting each other through ordinary challenges. As darkness settled and stars appeared above the fields, Elena felt a deep sense of peace. The past still existed, but it no longer controlled her future. She had found strength again, not alone but through kindness, patience, and the courage to keep moving forward. The farm stood calm around them, a symbol of steady growth. And in that peaceful moment, Elena understood that real change often begins with something small, a simple gesture, a shared meal, a warm coat offered without expectation, and grows into a life rebuilt step by step.